On the rugged slopes of the majestic Mount St. Helens, a place of unparalleled beauty and treacherous allure, lies a haunting chapter in the annals of American history. In the early 1920s, a group of intrepid prospectors embarked on an expedition to try and strike it rich upon the high and isolated mountain slopes. As they ventured further into the wild expanse, the prospectors began to witness eerie phenomena that defied all rational explanation. Strange footprints, larger than any known animal, appeared near their campsite. Unidentifiable whistling and loud knocking sounds seemed to accompany the men as they traveled through the mountain valleys and forests. When the men would finally return to civilization after almost 2 years on the mountain slopes, they would bring back a harrowing tale of a night where they were attacked by a tribe of exceptionally large, hairy humanoids. This case file, join the theorists as they get a little cabin fever while discussing the Battle of Ape Canyon.
Tonight's episode is obviously case file 286. Yeah, 286.
285.
285, the Battle of Ape Canyon. Taking this to Washington State, where I just was. And maybe that's where I picked up this god-awful sickness from.
Probably.
From down there. Some Sasquatch sickness.
Ape
in the hills. I caught it.
Did you spend any time near Mount St. Helens?
I don't really know where it is, so yes.
Probably. Well, it's that whole mountain chain, right? Cascadian Mountains, part of all those peaks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it kind of by? Yeah, I think I was there.
Yeah, you're close enough.
I was in a pass.
You're in the proximity.
Yeah.
Yeah, this case file takes us back to the summer of 1924, where a group of prospectors, right in the height of the gold rush, were prospecting near Mount St. Helens.
Prospecting.
Which had a pretty sizable amount of prospectors during that time, during the gold rush. And there was a lot of, pop-up little towns and people going up into the mountains in these isolated areas that had probably been untouched by man for millennia, you could probably say. And then these prospectors were fortunate or unfortunate enough to stumble across what may have been a tribe of Sasquatches. And they just happened to really piss them off.
I think the plural is Sasquatch.
Sasquatches?
Sasquatch or Sasquatch. The Sasquatches.
Yeah.
Sasquatches. Right.
That sounds about right.
I don't think you need the eaches, just the Sasquatch.
Sasquatch.
That's the plural.
If for those of you who live in the international ATT crew, if you're not familiar with Mount St. Helens, yes, it is part of the Cascade Mountain Range.
It fucking exploded. It's like one of the most violent fucking volcano explosions that you can watch online.
Yes.
There was a goddamn movie.
There's not a lot of volcanoes that we have like video of like, that aren't on island chains or something like that. It's like we don't have any.
You know
of
what I
those.
just thought of too, because this was such I can't remember the exact term. 70 people died, I think.
On St. Helens? Was it that many?
St. Helens.
Like absolutely eviscerated the side of the mountain.
Yeah.
And like the shockwave just rippled down the tree, destroyed the forest. If there was a tribe, that tribe of Bigfoot, of Sasquatch, are gone. And I never even thought about the displacement of the Sasquatch. This is Pacific Northwest. This is Sasquatch country. What that kind of blast would have done to disrupt the Sasquatch population. And if we're thinking that if they're territorial or something, you're pushing them into other Bigfoot, maybe this was
So in other words, if you live in the outer areas, lock your garbage up at night.
Yeah.
Right, that's what happens. We displace the wildlife.
I thought you guys would be experts in this area since Mount St. Helens was discovered by George Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
Founder of Vancouver.
Which I found out all of the Pacific Northwest is
Vancouver
basically named
Island.
after George Vancouver.
Vancouver, Washington.
There's
Mount Vancouver.
There's two Mount Vancouvers, apparently. There's one there on the US and Canada border.
Dan, I'm about to blow your mind. And
there's another one in New Zealand.
We are all from the Okanagan Valley, which is Okanagan. You go down south, and there's the Okanogan, which is Okanogan. The
Same
Okanogan Valley. It's just it's literally like twin valleys, and they have the same fucking names. And then they just change the spell. There's a Squamish down there. Our Squamish is spelled Squamish,
So like Bizarro.
and there is Skymish, Squamish, and you're like, what? You're like Squeamish. And
so they're like bizarro versions of you, like Bradenzo
exactly.
and Andrews.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of weird though. Like I get where old Georgie's coming from. Just like I discovered this, got my name.
Yeah.
Right?
You want to put your name over everything.
No, it's all Vancouver. I found it Vancouver.
He's like, this peak over there, that one that I see over there, Vancouver. They're like, you just named that one Vancouver. He's like, it's another Vancouver. Did you find it? I found it.
Dude, I'm surprised the whole region's not called Vancouver. The whole thing.
As far as BC is concerned, it is all called Vancouver.
This is true.
That's
It's Vancouver, and there's
province
nothing
works,
else.
unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true.
Big Vancouver and the greater Vancouver area, just as all of BC.
Yeah. If I ever discover a chain of mountains, you'll know it because it'll be
because
all
it'll be
my
called the
names.
Cheeks.
The Cheeks.
The 7 cheeks.
Well, the Cascade Mountains, of which the Mount St. Helens is a part of, were known to have a number of mineral deposits, including gold. And when news got over into the East Coast and spread out through North America that these mineral deposits were, easily exploited, you had a number of, intrepid prospectors and those with their get-rich-quick schemes and everything were heading over, Miner 49er style, and getting their... Stinky Pete's. We're getting over there to start exploring, the region. This is how a lot of the region got explored and, cataloged and, mapped because of this, like most of it. So you had a number of these prospectors venturing up into these rugged and remote areas of St. Helens, which again had not seen, probably none of them had seen people, much less white people.
Well, the whole mountain range is crazy because it's actually, compared to the most of North America, even the Rocky Mountains is an insanely high, like alpine range. Like a lot of the peaks are over 10,000 feet.
Oh,
so like we always talk about how Bigfoot, if they would live in parts that humans never venture, and in this location at that altitude, like we never went there. This is like the first. These guys are the Arctic explorers, pretty much, of the region. And
if you think about it, I mean, a lot of volcanic areas are some of the most like well forested, resource wise, like well growing forests and things like that. Since volcanic soil is
the richest, pretty much, fertile,
right? Richest and fertile, that you can have these big forests and these places of very diverse and robust wildlife. And with all of these miners and prospectors moving into the time, I mean, you saw a lot of intensive mining activity, which had, of course, as a consequence, you had the environmental impact on some of these areas. So you were having forests that were cleared for mining operations, streams and rivers were getting diverted. And then, all of this kind of disrupting all the natural, the natural order that was there on the mountain.
Pushing into Sasquatch territory.
They're fracking, weren't they?
Sasquatch.
Fracking.
So a specific group of miners, Fred Beck, Gabe Lefevre, John Peterson, Marion Smith, and his son Roy Smith had set up a camp in that valley to search for gold. Now, Beck and his team apparently they built a small cabin in what is now known as Ape Canyon, which
it's named from this event.
Right. It's named the eponymous event that we're discussing. But at that time it was just this remote area on the southeastern
It was actually just
slope
called Canyon back then.
Yeah, just canyon.
The generic name, yeah.
And so this cabin kind of served as their operational center. It was kind of going to be like their kind of fallback from where they were going to spend like the next 2 years prospecting in that area for gold and other minerals while they were there. Now, I mean, if you think about it, like this shit's crazy, and people still do this to this day. Cause I mean, there's fucking tons of like Discovery Channel special shows of like people like prospectors going out into these areas and stuff, and you basically have to rely on yourself for supplies, provisions, and everything.
And you also have to be naked, if I remember correctly, right? Those shows?
Yeah.
Have your bird out and you get to pick one tool and you start somewhere in the bush.
Yeah. That's how that works.
See how she goes.
Man, if you're naked on meds, you'd freeze to fucking death. You'd be
any time of year.
Like any time of year, yeah. But yeah, you'd go up there into these things, and your crew would have to be entirely self-sufficient because there's no going back. Like you're going to be like 2 days out, or at least like a day and a half, 2 days out from like the closest maybe town, like and walking. Like you're not going to be able to walk there in like a day, like if you're lucky, and make good time. But yeah, it's just like going out there with like nothing. Hoping that none of you get injured because if you break your leg up there, you're fucking dead.
Well, you just leave.
Yeah, you're fucking done. There's no air evac. There's no fucking GPS sat phone. It's like, sorry, buddy. Like you either can carry them out or not. That's it.
So the group themselves spent almost 2 years, like I mentioned before, on this mountain searching for gold, and now
so they're like they're familiar
life.
with they're familiar.
So
with
this must be somebody's like claim, I'd imagine, right? Because like back then,
I didn't even know if they had claims back then. I think you could just walk around and be like, "I claim this now. I'm here."
I don't think they weren't doing like mining. Like they didn't have like mines. They weren't digging out mines. Like they were mostly, they were just panning. I think mostly like that kind of stuff. Like they're going down to to the rivers and springs and just kind of panning for which gold would kind of come out of those water sources. Like there's no mention of them bringing like heavy duty mining equipment or anything.
It seemed like they were just, I always kind of thought they were just looking for areas rich in that for possible mining later on.
I mean, this is the time where it's like people thought you could just basically go to these, you find a stream and then you just reach in there and haul out a big chunk, like a handful of gold.
Big old nugget. It's like, found me a nugget of gold.
Set for life. But during this time, this 2 years of which they were up there and, becoming familiar with the area, they had a couple of discoveries that were kind of strange that they marked during their time. At first, like there was like they kind of had a couple discoveries of these strange footprints around various parts of the valley where they had been prospecting. One of the first was actually found on like a sandy banks of one of the streams that they had been frequenting, and they were unsettled, probably to say the least, by the fact that this set of footprints seemed to kind of like come out of near the shores of the stream and then kind of just disappear as the trail moved away from the water.
Well, and they were unsettled because they're like, "Hey, that doesn't look like a bear."
Well, and like you said,
like a big person.
Like these people have to be completely self-sufficient too, right? Like I'd imagine everything they're getting, they have to hunt or gather.
Trapping, hunting, yeah.
Right? So they're all experienced hunters at this, I would imagine, right? Or at least a few of them would be to feed the crew. So these people are going to fucking know animal footprints.
Yeah, I would say all of them for sure. At 2 years out there, you would know animal footprints.
They probably have snare lines all set up, and they got a fucking
I would
efficient
assume
system
you'd be
going.
on the lookout for bear footprints. You'd be very familiar because you'd be like that. You don't want that fucking sneaking up on you.
A grizzly, you'd be all over that shit.
In the 1920s, bears were a problem too.
Yeah,
like massively a fucking like they're obviously still a problem, but like the populations and shit like that, like there is a good chance that you are going to run into a fucking bear and die.
And not just a bear, like a grizzly, like 1,000-pound grizzly.
Like there's grizzly bears everywhere, and of course, we're reintroducing them.
We're about 5 years away from it being a problem again.
And we're about to be eaten again. We just talked about it on the last Power Hour, and then what happened?
That's why I knew that.
Then someone got eaten. Someone got attacked by a grizzly.
That's right. I sent that in the group. No, Zelstradamus. Somebody got fucking mauled by a grizzly bear.
I said someone's going to get eaten. I'm pretty sure Braden said it's probably going to win those damn tree planters.
I think I said that.
Yeah, that's
and
funny.
that's exactly. Well, dude, they go out there wearing headphones, fucking just head down, just planting all day.
Yeah, you get paid
right?
per tree, so you get 10 cents a tree or whatever. You just got to rip.
You're in the middle of nowhere, and you just walk into a bear, like easy.
I'm pretty confident, like the bear, like I know I've heard like black bears at least are pretty quiet. Like they can sneak up on you. Like they can just like,
especially when you got your fucking beats on and you're listening to some terrible fuck.
But just under normal circumstances,
or something terrible. You're gonna
under normal circumstances, like bears can just sneak up because they just like walk around and they're not.
Oh, dude, especially if they're
not crashing through the forest, they'll just be like, you could turn around. And you're like, there's a fucking bear. You're like, holy shit.
Especially if there's a stream. Like if there's a stream close by, that's like masking a lot of noise, and then somebody could just fucking walk up from behind. You wouldn't even know it's coming.
Like that.
Yep, they just bump.
Why don't go outside?
One swat, you're paralyzed, and then you just watch yourself be eaten alive.
Oh, God.
Jesus.
Leonardo DiCaprio style.
See you later.
The Revenant? Oh, that's a good fucking movie. It's a great movie.
But not only did they recall the events of the footprints and things, because there's like one or two times that they were finding these footprints and like these don't look like bears. These look like large human footprints, like abnormally large, like not just like just a big, these aren't just Shaquille O'Neal feet. These are giant, like really big feet,
giant footprints.
Giant footprints. But they also said that they also heard like multiple occurrences of strange like percussive sounds. Like while they would be out in the woods, like they would hear stuff like that sounded almost like rhythmic and sometimes, and then it would stop and then would like start up again.
And how do the Sasquatch communicate?
It is allegedly, allegedly they do use tree knocking.
And not just tree knocking. I've actually heard on Sasquatch Chronicles, it's been theorized that they actually use different trees and different striking objects to change the pitch, to change the meaning.
That's so fucking creepy.
So you hit like a dead tree with a solid branch, produces this sound. Right. You hit a hardwood tree with a dead branch, it produces like a different sound. And they say that they have different ways to communicate through the sounds of the knocking. I don't know how you decipher what those, like how you come up with that, but that's been theorized.
Well, a lot of like the Sasquatch, the organizations that go out there and study and search for Sasquatch, they say that tree knocking is one of the primary methods of communication that these creatures use. And because it can be heard like from far away. I mean, there's a reason that beavers do it too, right? It's just like you can hear it so far. And if you have like a 500-pound Sasquatch like wailing on a tree, like you could hear that from miles away.
What if it's alert? Like what if it's, because we thought maybe it's not so much a communication thing of like them being like, hey, Bill, what's going on? Where are you at? But maybe it's like an alert thing where it's like, hey, there's humans in the woods. Knock,
yeah, it could be like a marking or a warning,
right? And they're just knocking.
Like, think of it like a Morse code.
Yeah, so then they're not fucking making noise, right? They're laying low. They're kind of creeping around because they don't want to be fucking. Right? They think we're predators or something, right? So when you get those real noisy chipmunks, right? That when you're in the woods, it's like, and you're like, shut the damn it. Yeah.
Now, towards the end of their expedition and the planned time that they were spending on Mount St. Helen, they had found a little bit of success, is what's reported. That they had a little bit of find of some gold and stuff. So they came out like they were coming out relatively flush, I suppose. But Beck apparently developed a severe toothache, of which he was like,
because he's biting too much gold.
It's probably true.
Cracked a molar.
That actually, it could be true. I don't know.
Yeah. 2 years of chomping rock.
Yeah, I guess that could possibly have been what caused it. And so it was severe enough that it's like, I guess he had waited it out for a while. I guess he was kind of being like, toughing it out for a certain amount of time.
Die from an abscess tooth in the fucking tooth. Like that's legit. You gotta get him to the barber ASAP.
But it got to a point where the group decided to kind of go back to their cabin and then wait until Beck felt well enough to kind of go for the return trek back to town.
My favorite description of this cabin is so this is a tiny ass cabin, right? So
Yeah.
supposedly they had
Trapper
room,
cabin.
like there was
like a
one
shed.
bed,
Like-
there's one bed, and then like the floor for the boys to sleep in. Apparently the bed was big enough for two of the guys to share, but like spoon, and the other guys got on the floor. So it made me wonder, like, so like are the guys on the floor the lucky ones, or the guys that get to share the bed the lucky ones?
Is there like a schedule? Maybe there's like a schedule.
There's
know
a
what I mean? Like,
rotation, I
that's-
guarantee.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've actually, because I used to be friends with someone who was
Used to be a
conservation.
prospector?
You
Yeah,
used
I
to
used
share
to be a
beds with
prospector.
random dudes
And,
in the cabins.
who had a basically a backcountry map of trapper cabins, and you're actually allowed to stay in trapper cabins. Like you can just go and they're not allowed to be locked.
They're on public
you
land.
can go in
yeah.
them. They're on
Yeah.
public land.
I'm pretty sure
And
those
so
are the
I've-
cabins that are on fucking Yellow Jackets. So I don't know.
Yeah. And
What are you
so
doing?
I stayed in one, and it was cool experience. Tiny, super fucking creepy. Super
That's-
fucking creepy, but really, really tiny. And there was 4 of us, and it was like there was like a big, like a queen mattress, and all 4 of us slept on the mattress because the floor was so gnarly. We're like, fuck it. So there's 4 of us in sleeping bags,
in a
all
tiny
tucked
little
up
fucking mattress cradling
on a
each other.
queen.
How do I quit you?
We'll just zip all our
Body heat,
sleeping
right?
bags
Yeah.
together.
It's fine.
Yeah,
We
so
alternated foot, feet.
Headsy footsies, yeah.
Headsies, footsies. You're still, all your junk still lines up. though.
Headsies, footsies are 69, buddy.
60. We all lined up 69 style on the queen.
Yeah. So just to remind people like the setting. It's like they weren't staying at this cabin like every night. This cabin was kind of like, where they'd come back to. Like they would go out, they'd probably camp somewhere in a couple spots, spend time, a couple days here and there, looking, panning and doing whatever prospectors do. And then they would come back to the cabin every now and then, resupply and then go back out. So they're coming back from one of their expeditions, and on the way to the cabin, the group discovered another set of the treks, which seemed pretty familiar because they had seen these before. But they weren't really quite sure. They're like, well, like at first they kind of looked at it and they were like, oh, maybe it's just a really big bear. And they got a little bit closer and, took a closer look at these footprints, and they seemed to resemble, apparently, like these things were like 19-inch human footprints.
We're talking some shacks here.
Yeah.
Like, those are big ass feet.
And they realized that these footprints were very similar to the ones they had spotted like in the earlier weeks where they had found near the stream, and then in a couple other places. And then they also said that they reported hearing like a whistling sound while they were studying this footprint, which is another hallmark of like Sasquatch communication. It said that they use tree knocking and also whistling is something that's reported to kind of go along with Sasquatch encounters. Why not? Especially ones where they're kind of it's like carries, the sound carries well, through the forest.
Well, either way you think of a Sasquatch, like if it's like a hominid, like a distant relative of us, or some type of ape, we all make that. We can all make crazy sounds with our mouth like that.
Yeah.
Like in the whole ape.
Can apes whistle?
I don't think they whistle, but they make whistling sounds.
Yeah, vocalizations,
Yeah.
sounds. We have a pretty.
So it would just make sense
range.
that like a Bigfoot would have some type of vocal communication. It's like how advanced though.
Yeah, it would make they had some type of whether it's a language or a communication method, just based on tree knocks and high pitched sounds that carry well in the forest. But they said that they heard this whistling while they were looking at the footprint. So they're like, oh, we kind of probably need to get a move on. And I think they did record that they had the strange feeling that they were being watched. That something wasn't quite right. And because if you're sitting there and you hear you've lived up on the mountain, for almost 2 years now.
You've had run-ins with bears.
Yeah, you've had run-in with bears probably. But there's that thing, and I know hunters talk about it and things like that, but it's it's anywhere, right? Where you're really familiar with the surroundings and your brain just kind of catalogs what the normal sound sounds like. Because I can say it for working in a steam room in a power plant, right?
Or just your car. You're driving your
or
car.
You
know when you get a weird
room.
fucking noise and you're like,
something doesn't sound right. You're like that's
something's off.
Yeah, and you're like something changes and you're just like that's not right. I've never heard that sound before.
Happens to me every time I drive with no music on. I'm always like, what the fuck is that? This is what a vehicle sounds like?
Something's wrong. But I imagine it's something like that. Like it's a very unsettling feeling where like you're out in the woods and you hear a noise that you don't normally hear, and you're saying like, oh, that's not a normal animal sound. We might want to get moving. Now, when the miners got back to the cabin, there's differing reports about what exactly happens on the journey back to the cabin. One is that the men had stumbled across, like they were going out to, at least one of them, let's see, Fred and Gabe, of two of the men went out to like a nearby spring to collect some fresh water, and along the way, bathe together, yes. Just before, go. I mean, you don't want to be stinky when you get back to town.
They shared the bed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got to.
You want to get in the bed dirty.
You don't want to get in the bed dirty. So yeah, they got to go. Get a shower off.
It's hard to wash your own back.
100%.
So reports say that they encountered somewhere between 1 and 4.
Do you imagine this whole story was concocted because they spent a little bit too much time at the fucking lake washing up with each other?
Where were you two?
The fuck took you guys so long? Well, you're never gonna believe this.
Fred, Gabe, so how long you been up there? What are you out there for? An hour? 2 hours? What are you doing?
Why are you guys walking funny?
You look clean.
Ben.
This is where they describe scene 1 to 4 hairy bipedal ape men, and they describe them as ape men later, like and when they eventually would get back to town and then relay their story and retell their story of what the experience of what had happened. They describe them as these like large hairy ape men that were taller than your normal man with this long shaggy hair all over their body, and they did not look human. Like these were not people. Humans. Like these.
Oddly enough, this is one of the first times I've heard this type of like hominid described, but with like long ears.
Yeah, it's true.
I've never heard that before.
I'm trying to think of all the ones we've heard, if they're
that kind of stood out to me because I don't remember ever hearing
like more like a canine ear. Like how big are we talking here?
But maybe it's a regional.
Remember dog soldiers?
Yeah, maybe it's a regional adaptation, right? Like maybe there's different Bigfoots, and like I said, we don't see these ones.
They say 4 species
anymore, right? Like, well, yeah, we like skunk apes, yetis.
They're just like poking
things
out a little bit more than your average Sasquatch, maybe.
Yeah,
like
and apparently they're quite a bit longer.
The long-eared Sasquatch.
Yeah, long-eared. The elf Sasquatch.
Now, upon seeing this, like, once they got their wits back in place, Beck apparently just whipped out his firearm, and I think.
So, anyways, I started blasting.
Pretty much.
Well, Gabe like started fucking running, like just fucking bailing, falling over himself, trying to get his stuff and get out of there. And then Beck's just like, well, stood his ground.
Beck's like, well. Beck apparently opened fire. He took 3 shots after one of the creatures had roared in their direction and seemed to be taking like an aggressive posture. Like there was one in front of this column of like ape men and just like kind of started to step forward and made this really resounding loud roar. And so Beck just figured
that's good enough for me. I would say like in this situation, any posture to me is aggressive.
Yeah, no shit.
I'm like, that's aggressive. Getting shot.
So that apparently that these creatures were then scared off into the forest. Like once he took those shots, you're not really sure if he hit the creature, but at least one of them kind of took off, and he took aim at that one specific creature and was. What he said was like he hit the bark, like he could see the bark like flying off the trees as he shot at him, and then it was just like disappeared into the woods.
Well, and the first 3 shots that
what's happening here?
Uh-oh. Dan?
Oh no.
Dan, can you hear us? Dano?
Benjamin? Meltdown. Maybe we should take a break at this point in time.
Oh no, he's dead. Dan died. Well, while we try and revive Dan, we're going to take a short beer break while we get this figured out. We're going to be right back.
We're back.
So after Fred and Gabe like scare off, or these ape men retreated into the woods after taking a couple shots on they get back to the cabin. Both men make it back to the cabin, and they kind of tell them like what they saw, what's going on, and they're not really which puts everybody on edge, because you're like, fuck, like we just saw like King Kong and his family hanging out down there, and it's like we scared them off into the woods, but it's also like it's very Tusken Raider shit. It's like, well, they'll be back soon and in greater numbers. Like
I forgot what I was going to say before you had the computer meltdown is that Beck, when he took the 3 shots, the first 2 did nothing, and the third one kind of dropped it for a second.
Staggered it.
If he hit those first 2 shots, like I don't even know if
he became vulnerable. He became vulnerable for 50% more damage for about 2 seconds.
Right.
Now, did Beck stick around a little bit and pull damage? Did he pull a little like a Alfonso Harris? It's like, hey, King Kong, you got nothing on me, or did they just fucking book it?
No, he didn't.
I feel like he got to be pretty like, I'll just fucking drop one of these motherfuckers. You want some? Then you got like, this is the 20s. You got your little musket-fed fucking shitty rifle. Not fun.
But that wasn't the last time that they would see these creatures. Now, as the night kind of wore on, again, like they're waiting to go. That was the original plan. Was they were going to wait until daylight until to go back to town.
One of the accounts that I read is that these guys are booking it back to the cabin, and as they're booking it back, they're hearing fucking sounds. Like they're either being pursued or there's more stuff coming out of the woodworks.
Right. But like, as some of the reports are like when they made it to the cabin, like kind of things started to kind of settle down. Like they're just like, okay, maybe we just saw something really weird. And this is probably the worst part, because it's like,
but that's probably a false sense of security though, because you're like, oh, we're indoors.
But that's like the worst part, right? You're just like, you start relaxing. You're like, maybe I didn't see something really crazy. Maybe it was just a couple of bears or something. You're just like settling down, and everything kind of seems to be normal. Then sometime around midnight, after midnight,
we're gonna let
Bigfoot gonna come and get you.
Come and get you now.
Yeah. Sasquatch is going to let it all hang out, because apparently they describe something large ramming hard into the cabin. Like not hard enough to.
Not his penis.
No, not the penis.
As far as we know.
Wow.
We don't know.
Penis. We don't know. We don't know.
Is it proportional to the size of the body?
We're going to let it all hang out. Fucking Bigfoot's let it all hang out.
Bigfoot's got a baseball bat swinging.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, at least.
It's dangerous.
So something rams into the cabin, and like hard enough to like knock dust from the rafters and like planks loose and waking everybody up from sleep. Like I'm sure nobody was like in a deep sleep, because I know I fucking would be able to sleep if that shit was happening. But it just like knocked a bunch of planks loose, and these guys are all up and like wondering what's going on.
You'd be so disoriented, right? Like, what the fuck?
So it's reported that Marion, one of the men, actually got up and then kind of took a look through a gap through some of the logs in the cabin. So like this cabin is like, it's not like like we said, it's not like a super nice, it's like they just like stack logs on top of each other.
It's very like you guys did this in the woods with axes. They weren't doing it with chainsaws and shit. Like,
even if they like, if it was like, what was that stuff, like chinking or whatever, like the mud and everything in between. So there would be like, it
was like you just stacked a couple logs. This was Lincoln log stuff, and just like blip blip blip, and just stacked them up on top of each other, and that's where they are.
You can't say chinking.
Isn't that what it's called? Did I fuck it up?
I don't know. I don't think we call them that anymore. Term?
There's going to be a couple people on the internet that are going to get real mad at you.
Well, I wouldn't be the fucking first time. So.
or like the third time.
It won't be the last.
It probably won't. So as Marion kind of peers through this gap in the logs, he says that he would recall seeing at least 3 of these creatures, like the silhouettes of like in the night of these creatures, like moving around the cabin. And
dude, that's so terrifying in the moonlight, like in the moon and the stars. You're just like, oh, those are figures.
And those
can't fight the moonlight, bud.
Yeah, and these are the 3 that they reported, like he could see clearly, but he had a feeling they said is like he had a feeling that there were other ones out there. There was definitely more. Like there's ones that he couldn't see directly in front of him, but those 3 he saw for sure. Now they were saying as this event stuff starts going down. So they had these like rocks like start kind of hitting the sides of the cabin. Some stories say they're like boulders, but other accounts say that's like it's just kind of like just large rocks, like not probably nothing bigger than like you could palm with your hand,
like a softball size.
Yeah, like I think it's something more like that. If it were boulders like that, if you threw that cabin like the way Sansa was constructed, if you threw anything bigger,
it's a solid log cabin though, is it not?
But it should be like. Like I feel like that thing would just fall over, but
well, if it's solid, if it is solid log, like it's like
depends on how well the chinking's done.
That's true. If it's chinked well, it's not going to fall over.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
Low quality.
Well, if you can see them through the cracks, then no, it's not.
Yeah.
So,
like this thing kind of seems like it's in a little bit of disrepair, like it's falling apart.
So the assault kind of begins with these like varying sizes rocks being thrown and pelted at the cabin, and it kind of escalates to the point where one of the creatures is said to have actually managed to get on top of the roof because they can hear like something up on the roof stepping around up there, rhythmic footsteps of something on top of the roof moving around from side to side, and so at this point the men don't really know what to do, so they grab all of the guns as you do. And start just firing through the various gaps that they have in the walls of into the roof of the cabin. They just start shooting.
Didn't at one point one of them smash through, like they had a window braced up and they smashed through the window bracing, like the window wood slats, and like they took a couple shots at it and it ran off. And they're
big
like
arm fucking rifling around.
Yeah. That's one of the most terrifying parts of this account is they said like this large hairy arm just thrust itself like through a gap and just like was reaching around inside the cabin to kind of grab something. One of the accounts that I read said that like it managed to grab like an axe that was hanging on the wall and then rip it out, like rip the thing out of the cabin.
Just hacking away at these poor bastards.
Yeah, and they're just like.
Hey, it's together like, strong. Fucking axing people.
They shoot at it. They're whacking. I don't know what they did, but it retreats, and they fucking like quickly like it's like some Call of Duty zombies. They're fucking nailing the boards back on. Fucking hurry! Oh my god!
Repairs,
like terrifying. And then like after that one running away, that's when like the account I read, it's like they're like, okay, I think we scared it. And then all of a sudden it's like boom, boom, boom on the roof, and they're like, Jesus, we're in trouble now.
Now, so this entire thing like goes on like throughout the night, and then about I think they said around daybreak and around dawn, like it kind of the sounds and the rock throwing and everything kind of like settles down to a point where the men feel comfortable enough to kind of be like, or they make the decision to be like, we got to go. Like these things have either like gotten bored or tired or whatever, but we need to go now. So they packed up all the stuff that they could, everything that they needed to go, because they're like, we're probably not fucking, they're like, we're not fucking coming back. Like, we're not going. Grab everything that you can carry, and we're getting the fuck out of here.
Fuck that.
And they start to make their way to the closest town, which I think was named Kelso at the town. At the time, there's like a town called Kelso.
Full of dumb people.
It was apparently a pretty shady kind of town. It's any minor town. Like, it's just like, fucking.
Well, it's named after fucking Kelso. It's the people.
It's like a saloon and like with like 7 brothels and whatever. Like, that's it. Like, it's any mighty town or whatever. But as they're exiting the valley, like towards that one of the, like they're coming out of there, and like on one of the sides of the like on a cliff edge, like overlooking like one of the cliffs that near their cabin. They saw one of the creatures like standing there, just profile, whatever, like standing there, like either watching them or just like standing there on the cliff. And Beck was just like, yeah, fuck. And then apparently reported firing at the creature and hitting it, or, at least hitting it once or all 3 times.
Because that worked so well the first time.
Well, apparently it worked this time, because this creature, they report like it stumbled backwards off the cliff and then fell. Like it fell off the cliff, and they could tell like that thing was gone. And then, with that, the men were like, let's hoof it, because they're like, if you killed that thing, like you don't know if more are coming. And
like, let's just think for a second here, like the roof of their fucking cabin was basically torn apart by rocks and boulders, like smashed everything in there. Beck, one of the accounts I read, Beck like got knocked out at one point for like a few hours.
Yeah, they thought he died.
Yeah, like he got struck in the head and he was fucking laying dead. Your cabin, the roof is in tatters. Everything's destroyed. You've been just getting an onslaught of these long range Bigfoots just hurling fucking boulders and shit. Destroy the cabin. It's like, I can't believe they didn't leave earlier. Like, I mean, I guess they just wait today, because then it's like you can see them coming.
Well, I think they were waiting for a lull. They were waiting for like a lull in the assault, this thing, because it's like,
that makes sense.
They waited until I think they waited until like the activity stopped, and it was just long enough that they were sure that it wasn't going to start up again right away, and they were like, we need to go.
I mean, make a break for it.
We gotta go now.
Consider we have a roof to catch
go
these
faster.
fucking boulders being tossed at us.
Yeah.
Go outside. We might not be so lucky.
Yeah, dude, you get freaking like Randy Johnson in the fucking dome, like by a rock, like a
that fucking
rock.
bird, the pigeon.
Just like, that would be your head.
You just
Sasquatch
explode.
hurling a fucking thing. Boom. Yeah, it's like taking a fucking railgun shell. So the men actually made their way all the way back to the settlement of Kelso, where they like depending on which report you read, is like as soon as they got there, they went to the first saloon and just started drinking and are totally in shock at this point. Yeah. And just started telling everybody about what was going on. Like they just started telling this story, and everybody just starts listening to these guys, like retelling the story of how they fought the ape men in what is now, and they're like, yeah, I guess we're gonna call it Ape Canyon now.
It gets even further than that, because in this bar, like this is so many people have heard the story, and it kind of spreads really quick that like the next day, 2 guys convince Beck to be like, take us up to the cabin. We want to see. And other 2 guys go up there.
Smart.
And they see the cabin. They get there with them, and the cabin's fucking destroyed. All the chairs are destroyed.
Pulverized.
The roof's caved in, absolutely destroyed. There's fucking pebbles and shit and stones all over the place, and it's absolutely destroyed. And then these 2 guys are like, "Oh shit! Like this is
oh shit! Terrible idea. Let's get the fuck out of here."
Fucking Goodbye. And they turn and fucking hike out before nightfall, because they're too worried about these things coming back.
And the story spreads like wildfire, because this one relatively quickly, like it makes it up and down like the West Coast, and they're printing stories in the newspapers like within a couple days of the men men encountering ape-like creatures on the slopes of Mount St. Helens. And it's like, you can look it up online. Like there are headlines from that time of Beck and his crew, like telling the story of them encountering these creatures. And, most people kind of take it as like, the thing is like, yeah, what Braden described, like those 2 men going up to see the cabin, those are probably the 2 last guys who ever saw that cabin, because there have been multiple expeditions mounted. And I think there's at least 1 or 2, like there's 1 or 2 Discovery Channel or Animal Planet, some specials where they went to go look for that cabin, specifically in the place. And it's, some people have like chalked it up to like the difficulty of the terrain, or like, it wasn't exactly Like there wasn't like there's no accurate map.
It got sucked into an alternative dimension because everything that's on a Discovery Channel show never gets found.
Well,
so as soon as they do that, it gets doomed, and it just is never.
This area did suffer a fucking volcanic explosion, like that could have knocked over any remnants onto the forest floor. 1980s,
late 80s, I think.
I think early 80s. I think it was before we were
early.
Yeah, I think 82.
Go.
82, 83?
1980. No, it was May 18th, 1980. Yeah.
1980, yeah.
The other thing that you said is interesting is like you said they went into some interdimensional rift. Well, like all of these men have always kind of like stayed true to their account that they saw these ape men, except Beck. Beck later on, he has been like, I don't think they were ape men. I think they were interdimensional beings.
Yeah, Beck later in his life, like I think some of the men were kind of like immediately after the event. Like some of them were kind of reticent to like they're hesitant to kind of talk about the event. Like it's reported that they didn't really want to talk about it except for that one time that once they got into town, and then after that they never really talked about it again. Beck eventually would go on to kind of have a book published with his account in there, and then where he would kind of make a connection between these creatures and interdimensional portals and or the UFO. I think he makes some comments on UFO phenomenon as well. But yeah, like nobody can find this cabin exactly where it was. And, again, you could chalk it up to the changes in terrain from the volcanic eruptions, or you could say like, not exact, like the map where they put it is not exactly accurate. So even if like in that terrain, if you're like a mile off or mile or 2 miles off, like you'd never find it. Like you never fucking,
especially if there's overgrowth, like that's a lot of time for like new growth to spring up around it and shit,
or rock slides or anything.
Yeah, like there's so many reasons why they couldn't find it.
It's crazy too, because it's like everybody argues, well, it's been all this time we've never seen a Bigfoot. We've never seen it. Well, if we can't even find this fucking cabin that doesn't move, how are you going to find a Bigfoot?
Now that event, which has become known as now like the Battle of Ape Canyon in Bigfoot lore, is not the only. It's not the only connection that Mount St. Helens has to Bigfoot. Like there are other events this area.
This actual face. I mean, one thing first off is I have all the missing 411 books, so I was like, oh, I wonder if there's clusters.
That's incorrect. I have one. I never gave it back.
Braden is our UFO and missing 411.
I think you gave me North America, and then I just forgot that I have it until right now. So I still have one of your books.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
it costs like $40 per book. So.
Yeah. So I have a map, right? So I was kind of looking at the map and stuff, looking at the clusters. And interesting enough, there's not a lot of dated history in these books of like 1920. It's all more recent stuff. But one thing it's all like 90s and 2000s, 2010s. Like there's not a lot of real historical missing person stuff in there. But one thing I thought was interesting was that Mount Rainier National Park, there's a huge cluster there. And that's just northeast of Mount St. Helens. So I was kind of wondering, in my head, I was thinking, okay, if this area was eviscerated, like, and these things moved, if they went north into Mount Rainier, right, could there be now, is that where there's a cluster of now Sasquatch, if not, but this isn't even the only account on this same face of the mountain, like this exact same face of the mountain. There was another incident in 1963 with a Jim Carter, I think his name was. Is that right, Andrew?
Is that President? Isn't there a President Jimmy Carter?
Yeah, not him. Andrew did a little
for whatever, I could be wrong, but I had that happening in the 1950s. In the article
I'm pretty sure it was 63.
Interesting. Yeah, in this one I said he disappeared in May of 1950.
Maybe wasn't he found later on?
Nope.
No, never found.
God, no. But either way, there could be some discrepancy on the date, but Jim Carter, 32, was a member of a 20-member climbing party from Seattle. So as Braden said, they were already on Mount St. Helens. On the way down the mountain, he left the other climbers near a landmark called Dog's Head around 8,000 feet. Carter was an experienced skier and mountaineer, and he told the rest of the climbers that he would ski around to the left and take a picture of the group as they skied down the timberline. From here, Carter took off down the mountain in a wild, death-defying dash, apparently taking chances that no skier of his caliber would take unless something was terribly wrong. Or he was potentially being pursued. He apparently jumped over 2 large crevices and was going like the devil down the slope, seeming frightened of something. That was the last time anyone saw Carter alive. So they sent out a large group, I think there were for about 2 weeks of experienced search and rescue teams, and there was no trace of Carter. Only thing they came across was a discarded film box at the point where he had taken the picture. So he did end up taking that picture. When Carter's tracks reached the steep side of Ape Canyon, the searchers were amazed to see that Carter had been in such a hurry that he went right down the steep canyon walls, but they did not find him at the bottom of the canyon as expected. The tracks were traced by a plane again towards Eagle Creek Ranger Station before they disappeared into complete wilderness. And so apparently, like you read the accounts from the search and rescue guys who were out there looking for him, and they're like, the entire time they're looking, they're like, they felt eyes on them. And it was like eerie and uncomfortable. That's and like kind of like how the guys at Ape Canyon
stands up.
What?
Yeah.
And yeah, everything, you were right, Andrew. It was 1950. I had the 1961 is someone from a certain search and rescue person had gone back up and led some sort of expedition in 1961. So I had the dates mixed up. So you were correct. But the interesting thing about that is like, one, you have, that's a huge group of people, huge group.
Yeah, man.
And then one guy sits back and he wasn't even gone that long. Right. And they get to the bottom. They're like, hey, well, he should have been here by now. So they go to the next kind of area he would be in. They're like, okay, well, he's not here. He should have beat us here. They turn tail and they hike back up to look for him. Right. And then they're like, they find those tracks. They initially find the first ski tracks and they're like, where was this motherfucker going? He's hitting jumps. It's X Games.
He's out of bounds.
Well, it's interesting. It's like they're being stalked by some type of like opportunistic predator, right? So like watching this entire group of people and then one person strays and then he's like, boom.
So the interesting thing about this one is one of the interesting things is that for me is I'm like, okay, well, like you can find videos of like bears chasing skiers. Right. And if like a bear came across and would just like started trucking at him, sure. Right. He gets scared and he takes off. Right. But then it's like to do the jumps, to get down to the ravine and then to just start trekking through the wilderness. It's just a weird occurrence for how far he allegedly skis. I'm like, I feel like he would have outpaced the bear.
Bears are quick, man.
I guess so. But they don't really like running downhill, right?
I think that's a myth
Straight
as well.
down? Is it a myth?
I think so. I think it's like, that's like when those, maybe they don't go straight down, but they'll still run on a slight diagonal down the hill.
Yeah.
I guess it all depends then on how deep's the snow, like what type of terrain, like, is it like icy, like hard packed snow? Then the bear is booking it. If it's deep powder, then, but in the 60s, you can't even really ride powder in those skis. Those are like little fucking, or 50s, they're little toothpicks.
Yeah.
Like any type of powder, you're going to sink.
Well, and it's like search and rescue teams were out there for 5 days combing the area and didn't find any remains other than the one film box. And like that to me is, I'm like, okay, well, you feel like if a bear would have got him, the bear wouldn't have dragged him somewhere. The bear probably would have just left him in one spot there once you got him. Or there would have been signs.
No corpse, no nothing.
Yeah,
no blood,
or there would have been like, holy, there's a lot of blood in this area.
Now, I don't know the exact part they're talking about of the mountain, but like, have you ever seen did you see that recent video of the skier who falls in the crevice? The crevasse?
Oh, yeah,
terrifying.
I have.
So they come out of nowhere.
Super terrifying.
They could be a 400-foot crevice and down you go, disappear without a trace. And then in a few hours, the wind blows the opening shut again. And you wouldn't even know there was something there.
That's a good point.
You would just disappear. People who do backcountry skiing and stuff.
They're crazy.
Well, so you always wear an avalanche beacon when you're in the backcountry, right? But every once in a while, a skier will go missing and they think it's an avalanche, but they can't find any trace of avalanche. And they know where he is. He's deep. He's 500 feet below the surface of the snow.
Fuck that.
So it's beeping. There's beep, 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 beep. You're over top of him. He's there, but you'll never get him. Like he's gone. Fucking fell to the bottom of an ice
terrifying.
mountain, a hidden ice mountain in the middle of the slope.
It's the reports of like it being eerie and like and it being creepy kind of like makes that account kind of stand out. And because it's like on the edge of Ape Canyon, where the initial one,
Same
but like
group,
this one,
maybe same group as Sasquatch.
If the Jim Carter one was on its own, it wouldn't be enough to just be like, that's 100% Bigfoot, because there is other explanations, like you said, where you're kind of like, it could be this, it could be that, right? It's just, we're really taking kind of a leap on this one because it's on the edge of this area where these things fucking terrorize these guys. And then you have search and rescuers being like, it was fucking creepy there. Felt like stuff was watching us.
So Mount St. Helens actually factors into another kind of piece of Bigfoot lore that I'm aware of, and like I haven't looked super deep into it, but there's always this kind of story that circulates around about there being bodies recovered after the 1980s eruption of Mount St. Helens, and there's kind of reports that some of these bodies that were being like people were reporting that some of these bodies that were being recovered off like the side of the mountain were not human. Like they were large things. And like these, like they were like kind of, the people were doing the recovery were like some type of like government entity or something like that. Like just these guys coming out there and recovering these bodies of these Sasquatches, or if they were Sasquatches, but people were saying like those bodies like they were too big to be human or something like that. So there's always this story that kind of circulates around. I haven't dug into it for a while, but it's like, it always like, it comes up during, like it came up during this searching this, but this Mount St. Helens area again has this kind of a Bigfoot connection that apparently like there may or may not have been some there's that also like that connection that people kind of draw to being like, the government knows about Sasquatch, like they exist, like they know they do, and they just like, they keep them secret for some reason or other.
It is interesting. I kind of lean towards more like if they thought these things were maybe living in some sort of cave or crevice on Mount St. Helens, maybe they just got trapped in the explosion, like wherever they were living and stuff, either in the explosion, they're instantly dead and their cave system has collapsed and perished. So that area is now safe for hikers.
The government doesn't want us to know that Sasquatch is on the runaway from the government with a bionic man living together. They're in love.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's truth.
Yep.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
Brock Sampson shaved Sasquatch.
Save that
escaped
Sasquatch.
him.
Never seen a shaved Sasquatch before.
Nope. Not pretty. That movie's coming out soon.
Shave Sasquatch.
That was a good episode.
That was a great episode.
Yeah. So it's, so there's that thing. It's like, I'd also would kind of get on the train of being like, Bigfoot has some kind of UFO connection, because that's kind of popped up now, or been a more popular theory in the last couple of years about being, that Sasquatch is either part of, like he is an alien, like he is some kind of alien creature, or like I think we've talked about it before, where the theory that it's like, he's some kind of biologically engineered organism, like perfectly suited for, whether it's like, maybe it's like cataloging or, looking after something in that area. He's perfectly suited for that environment to kind of like,
it's like he's made for that, like snowy, frozen wasteland.
But it would make sense to me that if you're being like, okay, if the government's out there recovering Sasquatch bodies, it would make more sense. It's like, yeah, okay, so they are aliens. Like they are, but they don't want us to know about them, but they just happen to frequent that area. If it's a Men in Black situation where it's like, we have a bunch of Sasquatches living in this area who are also, they are aliens. And so they go out and we got to go get the bodies before or
they're found. And that's why you never find Sasquatch body.
Yeah. Men in Black, pick them up,
scoop them up. Or they bury their dead. Another theory.
That's also one, yeah, too.
Why do we never find Sasquatch? Because they are sentient beings and they bury their dead and they don't allow you to.
I mean, there's some people that report that they find like those burial grounds, or like they found like areas that look like they could possibly be somewhere.
Like
that would be the
mounds.
fucking creepiest thing, walking through the woods and finding that.
Just a little mound, a shallow mound, and you just start digging in and there's a fucking Bigfoot hand just pops out.
I'd be done. Why would you dig into it? I wouldn't even dig into it.
That was the first thing I did was dig into it.
Are you talking about like zombie Bigfoot?
No, it's just like you're digging into the thing and like,
but I see like zombie movie. That's how I describe it.
I also don't know why I would not dig up some random mound in the woods.
You wouldn't? If you've seen this suspiciously looking fresh mound in the middle of the woods, you wouldn't like start digging around on it.
No.
Listen, I got a phobia of mounds. I see a mound, I'm out.
It's loose dirt. There's no weeds or anything or grass growing. You could tell it was just
probably something that's been buried though.
That's what I mean. So start digging it up.
That's what I would think.
Dig it up.
Oh, dude, I'd be so scared. Because my brain would go either Bigfoot or I've just freshly found a serial killer's spot.
You know what happens when you start digging in that grave and like, you know, you see some of that hand and the Sasquatch hand, then you start hearing the wood knocks.
Yeah, fuck
that. You're desecrating your fucking Bigfoot gravesite, buddy.
And and you're fucked. And you're fucking getting Blair Witch Sasquatch.
Someone's got to do it.
That's the only. That's the worst part of
me.
Can you imagine you getting paranormally activated by Bigfoot ghosts?
See, I don't.
The house was built on a Sasquatch burial ground.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for like an ape culture to just bury their dead.
Why not?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's crazy with all the stuff. Like we know they have like other like chimps and stuff have like really intricate like societies and like social things they do. So I don't think it would be a weird thing to be like.
I've seen Chimp Empire now. Yeah. I've learned stuff about chimps I never knew was real. And they fucking smashing apart monkeys with their bare hands. I couldn't believe that.
Crazy.
Monkeys go to war, man.
The chimps just climb the trees, grab a monkey, and just like fucking hammer toss it against a trunk, kill it,
and then eat And it's just I just don't go digging up mounds and random places.
I'm stuck. You would though. I think there's a lot of people listening right now that if you came across a random mound in the middle of nowhere, you're probably gonna dig. You're probably gonna just disturb it. Just disturb the surface at least.
Yeah,
I'm gonna dig it. Must dig.
Curiosity will get you.
We forgot to talk about it at the top of the show, but did we have a theory of the week? Anyone stand out there?
We didn't talk about that at all.
No, we forgot to.
Fucking blew it on that one.
Blew it.
Did we blow it out? Did they blow it because nothing fucking stood out for us to be like, that's obviously theory of the week?
I don't know. I think maybe the Facebook group's been shadow banned again. I don't really see posts from it anymore.
Oh, really?
Possible.
Yeah, it's been pretty slow. So I think we.
I got another shadow ban.
It's weird because like
another false peanut butter post
doing all his fucking elk and shit. He'd be leaning a little more to the right now and let us.
Let's post some shit.
Stuff
Or
at least his buddy, stick to the jiu-jitsu and just let things go.
Let it fly.
It's all good. Yeah, it's all good, man.
Peanut butter wrapped in plastic's a real thing. You don't have to fucking ban people for it.
Yeah, but you seen it, that guy? He's saying nice things. He's not eating peanut butter
right now.
He's cutting carbs, he's cutting peanut butter, he's cutting all that type of stuff.
Yeah. He's cutting peanut butter right off the site.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's part of the Canada ban. Like all Canada content is getting shadow banned.
It's true. The only news I see on Facebook now since that happened is Russia Today. That's it. That's the only news. I see it, and it's in my feed because now I'm interested. So I look at it, and now it's in my feed every day. Instagram, Facebook, doesn't matter. It's Russia
Giselle's
Today.
A huge Putin supporter now.
Huge. All of a sudden, I'm fucking pro Putin.
Pro Putin. Ukraine's corrupt.
That's what I know now, that Ukraine's a corrupt country. We must go there and liberate them.
Yeah. NATO's it's not Russia's fault. NATO, when the NATO expansion goes against all the treaties they signed, Putin is in his right.
That's what I see every day. Just trying to convert me. It's crazy though. It's true. Right, that's a true story.
What the NATO expansion? Or are you getting?
I'm getting Russia Today and the NATO expansion as well. Come on, what are we doing over there?
I mean, we did sign deals that said we wouldn't, and then we did.
That's a whole different thing.
That's a whole nother. Well, maybe we're
already at war. We already gave them weapons. What's the difference? Pretty much the same thing. Anyways, How about instead of that, let's read some new Patreon supporters.
The real VIPs.
The VIPs of the show.
These are all the Theorites of the week.
Yeah, all you beauties. Anyone who signed up in the last couple of weeks here.
Wyatt Halliday, Elijah Green, Brenda Ross, Seme Mahia, and Emily Scordato. Welcome back, Emily.
Welcome back.
Gone for a while. Welcome back to the fold.
We got the Coda Bear moving up, so we appreciate that. Marcus P, Christian James, Drea Christina, Yunk Saggy Balls, and fucking, I think this is my guy. This is our fucking champion.
That's the champion.
This is our fucking champion.
The medieval champion himself.
Dilly Dilly to Grimnar.
We also have Jose the Whiskey Man, Joshua Bazin, John Moore, Bigfoot's Left Shoe, surprisingly.
Nice.
J.R. Moreno, and up to a full year pledge by Pat Lee. Thank you very much. We appreciate all the support.
Nice.
Because the show lives on your support. So you get tons of access to bonus stuff. So check it out. alientheorist.com. Hit that support tab. And don't forget, we got a fucking logo contest going on right now. Send in your submissions, alientheorists@gmail.com. I need to say this right now. If you're listening to this and you sent me one to my personal Instagram account, or you DM'd me one to Discord, or you DM'd me and you're like, this is submitted. It's not submitted. Send us the image to alientheorists@gmail.com. You can do logo submission stuff. First prize, $300 and a swag bag. And coming on the show when we pick the winner. Second place, third place. You're getting something too, but not as good because you didn't win.
First place counts, all right?
Yeah. And as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the skies. Peace.